Hi, my name is Ethan, and this is my older sister Jane. Well, she's just at the start, but she's already kind of a popular actress and model. And since recently, I've been selling her secrets. It came out completely by accident, but it brings me a good income. You want to know how I started selling my sister's secrets? Then make sure you watch this video to the end. By the way, there are a lot of fascinating stories on the Life Stories channel, so subscribe and stay tuned. Click the bell button so you don't miss them. Okay, keep watching. Well, I am the youngest kid in the family. If you think I got all the attention and love of my parents, as it often happens, you're wrong. Jane is always the one to get all the love and attention. My parents constantly compare her to me. They are constantly saying something like, "But at your age, Jane already did this and that. Jane always got good grades. Jane is the best in her class. And Jane blah blah blah. Jane this, Jane that. Best in studies, best in sports, best everywhere. A perfect kid role model anyway." My parents were very proud of my sister's achievements. They always boasted in front of their friends. And I was constantly the one to blame for everything. I was not as good as Jane. That's why my parents paid less attention to me. And if I used to be really upset about it before and I tried my best to win the love of my parents, then I just grew up or something. And I even found some advantages in this. My parents did not expect me to make great progress in my studies, so I just relaxed. I could skip the classes I did not consider important or necessary. Instead, I was improving my skills in computer games. I planned to become a professional gamer. I was not good at sports either. I practiced swimming, basketball, football, not soccer, but I quickly lost interest in training, so I didn't show any achievements at sports either. I didn't have any creative talents as well. I didn't even try anything. Well, I was an ordinary guy who hung out at the online games, talked to my friends, and somehow managed to study. My sister Jane was another thing. She had been the best in everything since she was a kid. She inherited a perfect appearance from our parents. When Jane was 10, she went to a modeling agency. She quickly got used to the profession. She started acting and advertising. Then she even had some cameo roles in various TV series. Seeing her potential, our parents immediately enrolled her to the drama school where Jane revealed her talent. Different producers started to invite Jane to the various kids' talent contests. Once, she even made it to the semifinals. Alas, she didn't make it to the finals because her competitors were of a very high level. But Jane and Mom, who, by the way, became her manager, did not give up there. They went to various auditions, hoping one day they would find their way to fame. It is not surprising my mom didn't devote her time to me, as she was closely engaged in my sister's career. She remembered about my existence only when the teachers complained about my score and called her out to school. Then I got my deserved lectures and yells. After that, my mom went somewhere with my sister again. Well, yeah, and as for my dad, he disappeared at work all day long and came only in the evening, totally exhausted. Me and Jane were not close. We have 4 years of age difference. It's not so significant, but Jane spent most of her time at school, on courses, on rehearsals, at the auditions, and so on. She had no time to communicate with me. She didn't tell me anything about her life herself, but I learned some details by myself because in the evenings, Jane liked to talk to her friend on the phone, discussing everything and everyone. She spoke so loudly that I could hear almost every word from my room. And from such conversations, I learned when her first time happened, for example. I also learned once she dated 2 guys at the same time. I heard she was planning to have several plastic surgeries in the near future since she did not like her nose and her breasts. In the end, Jane had a surgery and it significantly changed her appearance. Besides, she changed her hair color. From a dark brunette, she turned it into an ash blonde. Surprisingly, after such changes, her auditions started to be more successful. She appeared in the advertisements for various clothing brands more and more often, and the news about Jane auditioned for a small part in a rather promising series became a real event in our family. The series really had potential because the actors that starred in it were young Netflix stars. Of course, nobody said their names, so people predicted the future success of the series, and even Jane's small part there could be a big step in the development of her career. It's not that I was involved in what was going on, but my mom often discussed this with my sister at breakfast, so I was always aware of this. Some guys from my school knew that Jane was my sister, so when her name first flashed in the first episode of the new series, people started bombarding me with questions. Like, what, how, when, or is this actor really handsome, or everyone just lying and it's all makeup? But how was I supposed to know such details? I just shrugged my shoulders and hoped my friends didn't communicate with me just because of my sister, who was a rising star. For almost 6 months, Jane acted in the series. The whole family gathered in our house to watch the first episode. Even some distant relatives, cousins, and our uncle and aunt arrived, who we normally only see at Christmas or Thanksgiving. Indeed, Jane acted very well. She had about 10 minutes of screen time. When the episode ended, everyone applauded her. Mom and Dad were crying with happiness. The critics and journalists also marked Jane's acting. The very next day, several articles were published about the young and aspiring actress Jane. Everybody was wondering why she had never acted in a movie before and how such a diamond had been missed by directors and producers all this time. People invited Jane to various shows and interviews. Even the reporters and bloggers came to our house several times. They wanted to talk to our parents and ask them a couple questions, like how they've managed to raise such a talented and beautiful daughter. I watched everything that was happening with indifference, and the last thing I could think of was that someday Jane's glory would somehow influence me. But you never know. One day, one of my classmates told me his brother works for a city online portal. For the most part, they published various rumors, gossips, and scandals. But the readers liked it, and they spent a lot of time there. Supply and demand, you know? So his brother was working on an article about Jane. As it turned out, he wanted to ask me a couple questions, since I was her brother and I grew up in the same house with her. I wanted to consult with my mom first, and I called her, but she didn't answer as she was busy with Jane on the movie set. In the end, I agreed. Robert, the journalist's name, called me, and we discussed some boring facts about Jane's childhood. I thought that was all he wanted, but Robert said he had a few more questions for me, and he would like to meet in person. When we met, Robert said they already knew everything I had told them about Jane before. In fact, my sister herself always says this stuff in the interviews. My mom and dad also talk about it. But if I told them some sensational story about Jane, that would really be interesting for the readers. In addition, Robert promised me a decent sum for this. Not that I was obsessed with the money, but at that moment, I was just saving up for a new gaming computer. So I agreed. I thought, in the end, show business has no bad publicity, as they say. So a scandal will only make my sister more popular. At the next meeting, I brought my sister's old school photos, and I told Robert that Jane had had breast and nose plastic surgeries. Robert was more than satisfied. He paid me a pretty good sum. It was almost half of what I needed to save up for a new computer. Of course, when the article came out, the scandal was terrible. No one said the plastic surgery was a bad thing to do, but Jane repeatedly mentioned in the interviews her beauty was a natural gift. But it turned out she helped nature a little. Mom and Jane decided the information was leaked by someone from her former classmates since they saw old school photos, or it was someone from the clinic where my sister got operated on. Fortunately, they didn't even think about me. The scandal subsided for a while, but a month later, another journalist approached me, saying he was Robert's colleague from another website, and he also did not mind buying out my sister's secret. After a little thought, I told him some details from Jane's personal life, and the amount enough to buy the latest and the coolest gaming computer was in my pocket. This time, the scandal turned out to be not so large scale, but the bloggers and critics spent almost a week digging in my sister's dirty laundry. They contacted her ex-boyfriends and talked to them. Jane was very worried this would affect her future relationships, but the scandal passed soon. Recently, another journalist contacted me with the same request, but I'm still thinking about his proposal. First, I have already saved enough money for the computer. Second, I'm afraid my mom and Jane would guess who's leaking Jane's secrets to the media. Do you think I acted wrong, or was I just benefiting from the current situation? What would you do in my place? Type your answers in the comments below. I would really like to know your opinion. I hope you've enjoyed my story. So don't forget to click thumbs up. Bye, everyone.